أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله أما بعد. We thank the Almighty Allah for giving us another opportunity to be here. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. We also bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam is his servant and his messenger. Today I believe is the 16th day of Ramadan, right? 16th day of Ramadan, 1444 years after the hijrah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It also corresponds with the 7th day of April 2023. Today is our 11th class in this Ramadan series. The last class we were on Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad, where we said that is the test stone of Aqidah. If anybody in this world claims to be a God, or if anybody claims someone to be a God, Qul Huwallahu Ahad is the yardstick for measuring that person. If that person meets that criteria, then that person is God. But if the person doesn't meet that criteria, then with all due respect to that person or those people, we disagree vehemently and strongly. The Almighty Allah makes it very clear that Qul Huwallahu Ahad, He is the one and only. And we said that the word Ahad is found only once in the Quran, in this surah alone. And Almighty Allah didn't say Wahid, because Wahid means the first, and there's going to be a second, there's going to be a third, there's going to be a fourth, and so on. But He said Wahid, He said the one, and that's it. And the next word, Allahu Samad, the word Samad, which means someone who is eternal, someone who we all rely upon in good and in bad, it's only Allah. And this word As-Samad again is not repeated anywhere in the surah, anywhere in the Quran except in this surah. And these two words, Wahid and Samad, depict clearly who the Almighty Allah is. He is the one and only. And then finally in the surah, He says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ, and there's nothing like Him. Inshallah, today we'll go to the next surah, which is Surah Al-Masjid. Shaykh, Fadal.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد.
The Almighty Allah in this surah is trying to give us an example of the struggles of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in establishing the da'wah, and that he didn't get it smoothly. He had people who stood against him vehemently. There are people who didn't want the da'wah to see the light of day, and they went through all length to discourage the da'wah or to kill the da'wah in its inception. And then there are a lot of them, the people who stood, in front of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to divert the da'wah. There were a lot of them. But the Almighty Allah gave us two people as an example, a husband and a wife. And these two people, the husband is someone who is an uncle to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why did the Almighty Allah choose to, use the uncle of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as an example when the likes of Abu Jahl and Walid ibn Mughira were all there, but the Almighty Allah didn't use them? And He didn't mention them by name in the Quran, rather He mentioned Abu Lahab in the Quran. It's something that we're going to look at in the course of today's class. But the surah, as we all know, has a number of names as usual. We have Asma' Tawqifiyya, that is names that are established from the text. That the name of the surah is Surah Al-Masjid. And it is written in a lot of books, in a lot of masahif and even kutub al-tafsir. And you find the word in the surah. But the surah has other names that the scholars have all through their own research trying to establish a name for the surah, looking at the message that the surah sends. For example, they call it Surah to Tabbat, or Surah to Abi Lahab, or Surah to Lahab, or Surah to Ma Kana min Abi Lahab, or Surah to Tabbat Yada Abi Lahab. So these are some of the names of the surah. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma tells us that the reason why the Almighty Allah revealed this surah is that when the Almighty Allah revealed the verse وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ
وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ.
In our seerah class, we look at the levels through which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through his da'wah. And we got to a point where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the beginning had to conceal the da'wah because of some factors and some reasons. But then it got to a point whereby the da'wah must be made public for the people to benefit and for the people to know who the Almighty Allah is. So when the Almighty Allah revealed this verse, وَأَنذِرَ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, that is, warn your closest relatives, the people who are close to you. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mounted the mountain of Safa, and then he started calling the people of Quraysh, Ya Bani Fihr, Ya Bani Adi. He was calling all these, tribes that were found in Mecca. When they had all gathered in front of him, if a man could not go out, he would send someone in his stead. Because the person who mounted the mountain to call them, they know that person is a great person. Because the Congress of Mecca all unanimously agreed calling him As-Sadiqul Amin. He's the truthful person, he's the trustworthy. So when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mounted the mountain, they realized that no, there's something serious coming up. And then he told them, أَرَأَيْتُكُمْ لَوْ أَخْبَرْتُكُمْ أَنَّ خَيْلًا بِالْوَادِي تُرِيدُ أَن تَغِيرَ عَلَيْكُمْ أَكُنْتُمْ مُصَدِّقِي. He said, oh guys, listen. If I'm to tell you now that there is an army, a cavalry, behind the mountain, and they are ready to attack you, will you believe me? قالوا نعم ما جربنا عليك إلا صدقا. They said, true. We don't know anything from you except truth. You've never told a lie. And then he told them, فَإِنِّي نَذِيرٌ لَكُمْ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. Then understand. Same way, if I'm to warn you concerning an army which is going to attack you, you're going to believe me. Then believe me when I tell you that there is a punishment waiting for us if we don't believe in the Almighty Allah. قال أبو لهب. And then Abu Lahab said, تَبًّا لَكَ سَائِرَ الْيَوْمِ أَلِهَذَا جَمَعْتَنَا. Said, may you be cursed for the rest of time. Is it because of this nonsense that you gathered us? And the Almighty Allah revealed the verse, تَبَّتْ يَدَا أَبِي لَهَبٍ وَتَبَّ.
تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب.
Ibn Jarir al-Tabari in his tafsir also gives us, a narration concerning this, that the wife of Abu Lahab used to, go and gather thorns and rubbish and trash and firewood and then throw it in the pathway of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or throw it on him or at his doorstep. And the Almighty Allah, sent this. So these are the two, reasons why the Almighty Allah revealed this, this surah, and you can find them in Libab al-Nuqul of Imam al-Suyuti, and Bukhari himself, gives us the first hadith in his Sahih Kitab al-Tafsir. Now we are going to look at the verse one after the other. So when it says Tabbat yada Abi Lahab wa tabba, Abu Lahab here is an uncle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but his real name is Abdul Uzza, the servant of Uzza. And the scholars of Tafsir are saying, why didn't the Almighty Allah say Tabbat yada Abdul Uzza? Why didn't the Almighty Allah say that may the hands of Abdul Uzza be cursed? The reason being that the Almighty Allah doesn't want any rival. So if he calls him Abdul Uzza in the Quran, it's as if the Almighty Allah is what? Is agreeing that Uzza is powerful like he, Allah. Uzza is the name of an idol. And he is called Abdul Uzza, the servant of Uzza. So if the Almighty Allah mentions him Abdul Uzza in the Quran, it's like as if the Almighty Allah is what? Is emphasizing, is accepting that Uzza is so powerful that Uzza has a servant. So the Almighty Allah, in establishing his Tawheed, pushes his name away and then he calls him Abu Lahab. And Abu Lahab, some of them say it is one of his nicknames, his kunya. And the word Lahab means something that is brightening and shining. And the reason why he was called Abu Lahab, because his face was brightening and shining. He was a very handsome man. He has a very nice face, but the heart is very, very dark. Some of the scholars are saying no. The reason why he is called Abu Lahab, the father of brightening and shining, because he's going to be in Jahannam, which is brightening and shining. So his abode is used to describe him. And then Ibn Ishaq gives us a narration that the Prophet Muhammad, there was a man by name Rabi'at ibn al-Abbad al-Dayli. He said he came to Mecca and then he saw a man who was very handsome following another man. And the first man was moving around the community saying, Inni Rasulullah ilaykum, I am a messenger of the Almighty Allah to you, and I'm ordering you to worship the Almighty Allah and do not associate any partners with him. Then the man behind him is saying he is lying. So one man walking and another man behind him, whatever the first man says, the second man will say, no, it's not true. So he asks, who are these people? And he was told that the first person is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who claims he's a prophet of the Almighty Allah. And the man behind him is his uncle, who also says that his nephew is lying. So he has got a job following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anywhere he's going to say, this man is lying. The Almighty Allah, in trying to give us this story in the Quran, is to let us understand that sometimes the people who will oppose you vehemently in your life are people who are close to you. Close family members. The people who do not want to see you success. The people who don't want to see you prosper. The people who do not want to see you be someone better in life are the people close to you. There's an old Akan proverb that says, that if a bug will bite you, it's already in your clothes. If an ant will bite you, it's already in your clothes. If it's not in your clothing, it's not going to get the access to bite you. So if anything is going to hurt you, then it means that person is closer to you. And don't forget, in the last two surahs, we spoke about وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, that you seek refuge from the Almighty Allah concerning what? The envious or the jealous person who anytime he sees you have something good is what? He's envious and jealous of you. So this man was so vehemently opposed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he didn't believe that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a messenger of the Almighty Allah, and he is an uncle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He should be the first person to believe the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you look at a contrast of two uncles, Abu Talib, who didn't believe the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taban, but then he was what? He was a strong pillar with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So sometimes someone might not believe in your message, someone might not believe in your visions, but then so long as you have that vision, the person is willing to support you to what? To get to attain that vision, to see the realization of that vision. And then the opposite is also true, that someone might even believe in your vision because they know it is true, but then they will also go against you, like Yusuf and his brothers. They know what the boy has seen in his dream is true. They know that. And they know that the interpretation that their father has given is true. They know it. But because of hatred and envy, they went through all kinds of machinations just to destroy the young man. So, tabbat yada, the word tabab means, bankruptcy. Someone who is bankrupt, someone who has lost everything. Abu Lahabin wa tab. Why did Almighty Allah use yada, the hands of Abu Lahab? Why didn't he say the whole body? The reason being is that it is the hand that is used to do good and bad. It is the hand that is used to what? To deceive people or to hurt people. It is the hand that, even if you are not the one doing the evil, it is the hand that is being used to point towards what? The evil and then guide towards the evil. And since it's the hand that receives good from people, the Almighty Allah used that kinaya, that the hands of Abu Lahab are what? Are destroyed and they are bankrupt, referring to his whole body that he is destroyed and then he is bankrupt. Ma'agna.
ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب.
His money and whatever he has attained have not availed him of any good. The scholars are saying, why did Almighty Allah say, مَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُ مَالُهُ وَمَا كَسَبَ? What he has gained. Isn't money part of what he has gained? The scholars are saying the reason why the Almighty Allah used malu wa ma kasab, kasab here are his children. So his money and his kids have not availed him for anything. They will not be any good for him. Shaykh Surah Luqman, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqu.
يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم واخشوا يوما لا يجزي والد أو ولده ولا مولود هو جاز عن والده شيئا إن وعد الله حق فلا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا لا الغرور.
Ya ayyuhan nas, O you humanity, ittaqu rabbakum, be mindful of your Lord. Wakhshaw yawman la yajzi of the day that a father will not avail his son for any good. وَلَا مَوْلُودٌ هُوَ جَازٍ عَنْ وَالِدِهِ شَيْئًا, and a son will not benefit his father in any way. إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ, verily the promise of the Almighty Allah is true. فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا, do not be deceived by the life of this dunya. وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورِ, and do not let shaitan, the deceitful one, deceive you. This verse is letting us understand that if you don't stand firm and then you do not serve the Almighty Allah in the best way, do not think that your relationship with your father might be an imam, a sheikh, a maulana, a mufti, it will not avail you in any way on the day of Qiyamah. And if your husband is a sheikh and then you don't support the deen and then you don't work on the deen, you're going to have problems with the Almighty Allah on the day of Qiyamah. And if your son is someone who is also virtuous and you are not virtuous, he's not going to help you in any way in the day of Qiyamah. There is a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said, فَمَنْ بَطَّأَ بِهِ عَمَلُ لَمْ يُسْرِعْ بِهِ نَسَبُ. Anybody who on the day of Qiyamah, his deeds slow him down, then you should understand that his lineage will not sprint him into Jannah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told his daughter Fatima, "Salini ma shi'ti min ad-dunya." Fatima, ask me whatever you want in this dunya. فَلَا أُغْنِي عَنْكِ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. I will not be able to avail for you any good on the day of Qiyamah. If the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling his daughter that she's supposed to do good in this dunya to get the mercy of the Almighty Allah on the day of Qiyamah, do you think you and I, our kids, are better than Fatima, or are we better than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? We are not. So if the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling his daughter, hey, listen, I'm Muhammad Rasulullah, I'm Afdal Khalqillah, I'm the greatest. But understand one thing, the fact that I'm the greatest doesn't mean that if you do not serve the Almighty Allah, there's going to be some ways and means on the day of Qiyamah. No, understand this. And this is the reason why Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam said in Surah Al-Shu'ara,
يوم يبعثون
Naam.
يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم.
In a series of dua that Ibrahim was doing to Allah, he says, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. Oh Allah, don't disgrace me on the day you are going to resurrect people. Oh Allah, don't disgrace me on that day. Because it is a day that if you are disgraced, then that's it. It's a day that if you lose, you've really lost. Because it's a place whereby there is no opportunity for you to make any amends. If there's any amends to do, it's here in this dunya. So Ibrahim, understanding that day, was saying, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. Oh Allah, do not disgrace me on the day that you're going to resurrect people. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. The day that your money and your kids will not avail you for anything with Almighty Allah. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except the person who comes to Almighty Allah who has a strong heart, a healthy heart. A healthy heart here doesn't mean anything about cardiovascular activities. It means that your heart is sound, is good. It has tawheed in there. It has sunnah in there. It has obedience to the Almighty Allah in there. That is a sound heart. Because the Prophet Muhammad said, "Inna fil jasadi la mudgha." In the body is a muscle. إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ. If that muscle is pure, is correct, is reformed, then the rest of the body is reformed. وَإِنْ فَسَدَتْ. If she is destroyed, if she is corrupted, if she is bankrupt, فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ. The whole body is bankrupt. أَلَا وَهُوَ الْقَلْبُ. أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. Or she is what? The heart. Most often than not, you find a poor heart under a rich coat. And sometimes you have a poor coat over a rich heart. Some people are rich in the heart, but then they are poor outside. Some people are poor in the heart, but they are rich outside. Someone might have all the goodies in the dunya, but then the heart doesn't have the tranquility and the peace of mind because the person doesn't have Islam, he doesn't have Tawheed, he doesn't have Aqidah. We always say this, and I make this example, that most often than not, you find across the world, very rich, wealthy people are committing suicide. They've lost the taste of life. Because what? The discipline that the Almighty Allah brings in terms of doing ibadah and getting closer to the Almighty Allah, they don't have it. So life is meaningless to them, and then they end up with all their millions and their billions, they commit suicide. But you are here, a Muslim, you're struggling to pay your bills, but then you are content with life. What you have is okay for you. Your one dress is enough for you. You wash it every Friday, you wear it, and then you come to the masjid. You don't care what other people own, whether they own millions or they own billions or they own, you don't care. Your $100 is okay for you. That is the sign of contentment, and that is the sign of being someone who is rich. When we train our hearts to understand this, when we train our hearts to accept the qada and qadar of the Almighty Allah, wallahi, we live a peaceful life. But then if our heart is always wandering, always looking for something that you know very well that you're not going to get, then that is a calamity that may the Almighty Allah safeguard us. So Abu Lahab, with all his money and with all his his kids, they didn't avail him in any way. There's a story that Abu Lahab, when he was going to die, he developed some lesions on his body. The body started to rot, even when he was alive. And the community had to throw him out. His kids and his family all ostracized him. And they left him. And then he died in that rotten state. To prove a point that مَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُ مَالُهُ وَمَا كَسَبَ, that his money and his kids did not avail him in any way. And there's also a narration that Abdullah ibn Abbas, in his old age, he had gone blind. And then the children of Abu Lahab came, and then they were having a confusion in front of him. And he was trying to, settle them and then find a solution between them. And they ended up pushing him, and then he fell down. And then he told his handlers, "Ukhruju minni, ukhruju anni kasb al-khabith." That drive away the wealth of the evil one. Meaning drive these kids away, because their father, the Almighty Allah, says, "Ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab." So my brothers and sisters, let's be mindful of, how we treat our kids. Some of us pamper them and spoil them. And when other people want to correct them, it becomes a problem. And sometimes the societies we find ourselves in also play a role in what? In the deteriorating nature of some of our kids. Where I'm from, a street nurtures a child. If you mess up on the street, someone will give you a hard knock on your head to set your memory back to factory settings. That's a fact. That's how we grew up. And when you do something wrong on the street and then you are disciplined, you dare not come home and come and complain. That's so and so beat me. You're going to get double of what you received outside for disgracing the family outside. But we live in a community here that, no, you can't do that. So parents, you have extra job in nurturing your kids. Because the street out there is going to corrupt them. The street out there is going to corrupt them. So if you don't do an extra job in the nurturing of the kids in the home, and then they are always outside in the streets, The street feeds them 200%, you only feed them 50%. You always have a 100% deficit. We are not saying you should be a tyrant in the house. No. You must mix love with discipline in the home. And let them understand when they go astray, they must be brought back. But then if you nurture your kids in a way that you don't speak to them, I mean, if they do something wrong, you don't caution them. You don't let them know that this is wrong. They're not supposed to use this kind of language. They're not supposed to do this thing. They're not supposed to dress in this way. They're not supposed to do this way. At the end of the day, when they grow horns, and then you cannot control them, then you come to us, oh Sheikh, remember my child in prayer? He's a stubborn boy. He didn't become stubborn overnight. He went through stages. And you close your eye because you are a loving and caring father. You don't want any harm to come to the son. You pamper him. And sometimes the opposite is true. It's the mothers who also pamper the kids. The Almighty Allah makes it very clear. The Prophet Muhammad says, "Kullukum ra'i wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi." All of us are shepherds, and the Almighty Allah is going to question us concerning the flock we were given to hold. If you take care of the flock very well, you get an extra bonus on the day of Qiyamah. If you do not take care of the flock well, you have a lot of questions to answer on the day of Qiyamah. And I'm very sorry. Don't tell me this is America. We had an issue with a parent. The parent said, this is America. So it is very difficult to raise the kids. Whilst other parents are having you are here in the masjid, right? And every Friday, the kids come and read the Quran to us. Were they born in Africa? Or were they born in Middle East? They were born here. And they've memorized the Quran here. So if you want to hide behind, this is America, when your kids are going astray, fine, that's your business. But as a parent, it doesn't matter where your child is. If your child lives in the Kaaba and then you don't take care of him, he's going to end up bad. So it doesn't matter where you find yourself. What is important is the kind of investment you are making in that child. If you're making a positive investment in the child is going to come out good. Because we've seen it. We have Hufaz of the Quran here. We have people memorizing the Quran here in America. They were born here. Some few years ago at the Dubai International Quran Competition, an American boy went and then he was in his suit and his tie for the Quran competition. So if you hide behind that and say, Sheikh, this is America, and then you let them dress anyhow, they have whatever they do, they behave anyhow, they speak anyhow, you can't blame America for that. No. Don't use America as a leverage or as a barrier to hide behind your own inconsistencies as a parent. I'm very sorry today, it might be a little bit blunt to you parents, but sometimes we need to hit the hammer hard on the nail. Because at the end of the day, the kids belong to all of us. Because if your kid is good, it belongs to everybody in the community. All of us enjoy. But if the kid becomes bad, all of us are in trouble. All of us are in trouble. Because if your kid becomes a gangster and he can wield, a gun and then just start shooting anybody, when he comes to the masjid one day and things do not go on well, he will end up all going to Jannah. That's a fact.
I understand.
Yes. But then if we nurture the kids in a way, Abu Lahab, the Almighty Allah says, "Ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab." But then in Surah Al-Kahf, Sheikh don't bring the verse, "Wa kana abuhuma saliha." When Musa and Khidr were traveling and they got to the village and they wanted the people to host them, the people refused to host them. But then they saw a wall that had cracked, it was going to fall, and then Khidr told Musa, "You get up, let's straighten the wall." They straightened the wall. After they straightened the wall, Musa was like, "Law shi'ta lattakhazta alayhi ajra." You should have, get payment. These people, we came to them, no food, no lodging, and then we see a wall, and then we help them. Let's go and take something from them. And then Khidr told him, wait. I already gave you 2 chances. This is the 10th chance, so forget about it. So Khidr was explaining to him what happened. And then he told him, you see that wall that had cracked, that was going to fall. It belongs to 2 orphans. And underneath the wall is a treasure. And their father was a good man. The goodness of the father was used by the Almighty Allah to protect the wealth that the father had left behind. The goodness of the father was used to protect the wealth of the father. And some of the Mufassirin are saying that the father that is being spoken of in this surah is not their direct father. It's not their direct father. He is their 7th grandfather. The goodness of their 7th grandfather went through 7 generations protecting the kids. So if you are a good person now, the Almighty Allah will use your goodness to protect your kids and their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids for 7 generations. But if you are not good, your kids will not avail you to anything. So it's very, very important as parents we understand this. That do good. I think Hassan al-Basri was telling his son, he said, my son, I'm going to increase the number of raka'ats I do at night so that the Almighty Allah will use that to protect you. He, the father, is going to do more raka'ats at night. The reason being so that the Almighty Allah will use that to protect his child. So as parents, we need to have that at the back of our minds, that we need to have a deliberate, conscious effort in nurturing the kids on the right way. You need to have that. And sometimes you need to sacrifice some dollars so that the kids will be what? Will be on the right path. Sometimes you need to sacrifice just being able to float in terms of your bills. Because if you're going to chase the dollars, you will never ever get them the way you want them. If you leave the kids at the detriment of the community or of the society or the street or the nanny or the maid, and then you will go out there working 24 hours. Some of you work 30 hours a day. I don't know how you do it. Because you're looking for the dollars. And then the kids are left at the mercy of Netflix, at the mercy of HBO Max, of Prime Live. And understand one thing. Netflix now, there is no movie Netflix produces without the alphabet community being in it. If you not observe it, look at it very well. Netflix, any movie that comes out of Netflix now, the L and the G's and the B's and the T's and the Q's and the plus people are in there. Any movie they produce now. Because they understand that forcing it on the community is not going to work. So they're going to corrupt the next generation of human beings who are coming. You and I say, no. Yeah, we don't like this. It's not part of our culture. It's not part of our lifestyle. It's not part of what we want. Okay, fine. They won't get you. The lower ones. Even in the cartoons now. Even in Disney. Even Disney. So if you say, fine, there's the television there. So you stay home. I'm going to work 18 hours a day, 19 hours a day, 20 hours a day. Because I want to have more money, pay the bills, buy you the latest iPhones, get you the latest iPads, get you the latest dresses, get you all these beautiful things, but you can stay on the television, no problem. After 20 years, you're done. So his money or his kids do not avail him in any way. So the same with us. If we do not strive and work towards that, wallahi, we're going to find ourselves in situations that is not going to be favorable to us. Shaykhana sayasla. He is going to go through a fire that is brightening and kindling, which is very, very severe. The Almighty Allah made it very clear that Abu Lahab is going to go to Jahannam. Very clear. There is no ambiguity about it. Sometimes they say the scholars differ. This one, there's nothing like that. There's no difference of opinion here. Because it's the Almighty Allah who made that categorical statement. And in this verse, is a manifestation of the of the truthness of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is Abu Lahab could just utter one word and then he would destroy the message of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If Abu Lahab had come out publicly to say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, he would have belied this verse. You said I'm going to go to Jahannam. Okay, I've said La ilaha illallah. Now let's see what's going to happen. But Abu Lahab, nor his wife, they never publicly or privately or even thought of accepting Islam. Why? The Almighty Allah to prove a point that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is really a messenger of the Almighty Allah. وَامْرَأَتُهُ
حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ.
The scholars have differed here concerning حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ وَامْرَأَتُهُ and his wife. حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ, she is someone who carried firewood. The scholars are saying that there are two interpretations here. Which is the first one is she is going to carry the firewood with which she is going to be burnt with in Jahannam. She herself is going to carry the coal, the fuel, which she is going to be used to be punished with in Jahannam. She is going to carry it herself. That is one. The scholars also say that since her husband is a rich man, but then because of her evil nature, she will go out there in the wilderness of Mecca to fetch firewood and trash on herself. No slave is going to help her. She's not going to let any maid help her. Nobody is going to help her. She, because of her enmity towards the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she will carry it herself. So the Quran mentions her as what? Someone who carries firewood. My brothers and sisters, choosing a spouse too is very, very, very important. If you choose, I think I read something on Facebook that said, what is, when you are completely finished or finished completely. They said, if you have a wrong wife, you are finished completely. Will Almighty Allah safeguard us?
Amen.
In choosing a spouse is very, very important that you take your time and choose. Because nowadays, every woman is beautiful if you are going to go for beauty. Because now they change housing. They will change the housing. As you change the housing of the phone when you want, now they change housing. So if you're only going to go for beauty, she's beautiful, she's tall, she's this, fine, you get the beauty. But now, when you come and live with her, that is when you really understand what marriage is. You come to the masjid, the imam says, Waladhalin, and then you say, Allahu Akbar, in salah instead of Ameen. There is an imam whose wife was disturbing him. This one is not a joke, it's a true story. Back home. The Hausa people will understand this better. He went to ruku, Allahu Akbar. Sami Allah ibn Hamid, he said, Salamatu Allah Isa. He said, Salamatu, only Allah will deal with you. From Sami Allah ibn Hamid. Yes. Yes. So find a spouse that understands your vision and understands what you stand for both males and females. If you, the woman, now, because you want to have, a luxurious life, a nice life, if a man comes to look for you, to marry you, you ask for his credit score, where is he living in town, what kind of car does he use, how much does he earn? And sometimes some of us parents are guilty of that. Two people come to seek the hand of your daughter in marriage, and this guy is struggling to ends meet, but then he has a job. It's a sustainable job, even though he doesn't make $200,000 a year or $400,000 a year. And he's living in a rented apartment. He has his old car that he drives around, but very responsible young man, very conscious of the deen. He prays 5 times a day. Ramadan is a very responsible young man. But no, you put him pending on the list. And then someone comes in, he drives $100,000 car, he lives in a $1 million condo, and then he earns, hundreds of thousands of dollars in there. You say, yeah, this is the man I'm going to give my daughter. Your daughter will always be in sunglasses because he's going to punch her. Because they understand that you gave the daughter out because of the money. They understand perfectly well. And then this young lady will go to that marriage, and there is no peace in the house, there's no respect in the house, there is no care, there's no love, there's no attention, and ultimately there is no deen in the house. Sometimes we pick young girls who are very, very industrious, very, very educative, very, very, God conscious. Young lady, she is in her full hijab, she goes to madrasa, she goes to university, and then we take her and give her, to a bomb. He doesn't pray. He doesn't fast. He consumes all kinds of things. And she is struggling to nurture the kids on the path of Islam, and he doesn't care. إِذَا جَاءَكُم مَّن تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. If someone comes to you, the Prophet Muhammad gave us two criteria: his deen and then his character. If his deen and character are acceptable, give him the girl for marriage. But if you bring in your other criteria, your other, specs that you look at, then you're going to have a hard time. Let's marry for the deen. Allah will be safe. But if you marry for anything else, you're going to have a long way to go. So find someone that you have what? A mindset together, a positive mindset. This man has got a perfect match for a wife because whatever evil he is doing, she's supporting him. You should find a kind of woman that anytime you are veering off the path, she is going to help bring you back. You should also marry a man that anytime you are veering off the path, he is bringing you back. Shaykhana, the Almighty Allah says in Surah Tahrim, ضرب الله مثلا.
ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط.
نعم.
كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما فلم يغنيا عنهما من الله شيئا.
نعم.
وقيل ادخلا النار مع الداخلين.
نعم.
وضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين.
Shukran. The Almighty Allah says, ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا. The Almighty Allah has given us an example of those who have disbelieved. He says, امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط. The wife of Noah and the wife of Lot were disbelievers. Someone will ask a question. Why would the Almighty Allah make his prophets marry these disbelievers? As we said in previous classes that the prophets and the Prophet Muhammad included, the Almighty Allah makes them go through some of these things so that you and I will come later and come and learn. Because they are our role models. They are the ones that we look up to learn from them. So anytime something happens to them, it is a cue for us. Like, look at it and then learn from it. And the other thing is that the Almighty Allah is giving us another lesson, that the fact that her husband was a prophet, Noah and Lot, and she didn't support the message, doesn't mean she's going to get some immunity from the Almighty Allah. No. You're not going to get any immunity from the Almighty Allah. You cannot rely on anybody on the day of Qiyamah. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. Nobody is going to carry anybody's load on the day of Qiyamah. Whatever you carry, you're going to bring it on the day of Qiyamah. There's not going to be any porter on the day of Qiyamah who is going to carry for you. In this dunya, you see me coming, oh Sheikh, let me help you. Fine. That is the dunya. On the day of Qiyamah, you pass your way, I pass my way. And that's a fact. So the Almighty Allah gave us an example. ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين. They were with two of our servants who were good men. فخانتاهما. And these two women deceived their husbands. فلم يغني عنهما من الله شيئا. Their association with these two good men didn't benefit them in any way because they themselves were not good. وَقِيلَ دُخُولَ النَّارَ مَعَ الدَّاخِلِينَ. And then they were being told on the day of Qiyamah, enter hellfire amongst those who are going to go there. So here the Almighty Allah gives an example that the husbands were good men, but then the wives were corrupt. He didn't favor them. Then the next example, the Almighty Allah says, وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِمْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ. In the example of believing women, the Almighty Allah says, the wife of Fir'aun. The fact that her husband was an evil man, but because she is a good woman, the evil of her husband didn't affect her. So the fact that you have an association with an imam or a sheikh or a maulana or a good person, and then you don't do good, doesn't mean that you're going to get any immunity from the Almighty Allah. Because in Islam, we are going to be questioned individually. Individually. In as much as it's a collective, religion, we're going to go individual. We're going to go individual. Even if we're all buried in a mass grave, we're going to go individual. We're going to stand in front of the Almighty Allah individual. Let me give you an example. We are all in Maghrib praying behind the Imam, and then the Imam's wudu becomes invalidated. Is our wudu all invalidated? No. He alone leaves, and then someone continues the salah. If you are behind the Imam and then your wudu gets invalidated, you leave and go and perform your wudu and then you come back. Even though we are all performing the salah in group. It's a group thing, but at the same time, very, very individualistic. So same way on the day of Qiyamah, we are going to go groups. Yes. The Almighty Allah is going to call us groups by groups. But then, individual questioning. ما منكم من أحد إلا سيكلمه ربه ليس بينه وبينه ترجمان. The Prophet Muhammad said, there is nobody in this dunya that except on the day of Qiyamah, the Almighty Allah is going to speak to you, you are going to speak to the Almighty Allah. There is no interpretator between you and the Almighty Allah. All of us will go and meet the Almighty Allah. Everybody is going to meet the Almighty Allah to weigh your deeds. And the Prophet Muhammad said, Man nuqisha udhiba. If the Almighty Allah is going to question you on the day of Qiyamah, you're going to go to Jahannam. When Almighty Allah said, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. The hisaban yasira, the easy, accountability that the Almighty Allah is going to do for us on the day of Qiyamah is, okay, Kishk, you spoke a lie on this day. I say, yes, Allah. On the other day, you did this. I say, yes, Allah. On the other day, you did this. Yes, Allah. Okay, I've forgiven you. Go to Jannah. But if the Almighty Allah says, okay, Kishko, on this day you told a lie. Why? If the Almighty Allah asks you why, you are going to go to Jahannam. Because you never have an explanation for the Almighty Allah. So the Prophet said, Man nuqisha. If the Almighty Allah is going to interrogate you, if he's going to cross-examine you, you're not going to pass. So that's why the Almighty says in the Quran, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينٍ. Anybody who gets his book in his right hand, فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. He is going to go through a very easy accountability. And the easy accountability is the Almighty Allah says, you did this, you say yes. And then he doesn't ask you why. You do this, he said yes. Okay, fine. Go to Jannah. That's حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. But if he asks you, why? Sometimes some of these lawyers, when they get you in the grilling box and they ask you why, You can't answer. How much more the Almighty Allah? May the Almighty Allah safeguard us. So, Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, the Almighty Allah used her also as an example. So, these two women, the first two women, their husbands were prophets. But because they didn't obey the Almighty Allah, He didn't give them any benefit on the day of Qiyamah. And then look at Asiya, who her husband is. No matter how stubborn you are in this dunya, you will never be like Fir'aun. No matter how stubborn you are. Because Fir'aun has committed a crime that even Shaitan didn't commit that crime. Yes. The crime of Fir'aun, Shaitan didn't commit that crime. Shaitan said, Ya Allah, I'm not going to prostrate to him. That's Shaitan's crime. Fir'aun said, Ana Rabbukumul A'la. When Musa came to Fir'aun and then he spoke to him, Fir'aun was almost convinced. But he told Musa, you wait, let me discuss with the cabinet members and see. But before that, you give me more. If I believe in Allah and I become a Muslim, what am I going to get? He said, you're going to maintain your kingdom in this dunya, and then the akhirah too, you're going to be a king in the akhirah. And then Fir'aun said, no, this is a win-win situation, but you all think about it. Chief advisor, he said, man, Musa came here. You know that boy, Musa, that small boy who lived in my house some few years back? He was even sitting on my lap. I was playing with him. He now says he's a prophet from the Almighty Allah. He has even come to even, deliver me. So what did he say? He said, if I believe in Allah, I'm going to maintain my kingdom in this dunya, and then in the akhirah, I'm also going to maintain a kingdom in the akhirah. What do you think, Haman? This is a win-win situation. And Haman said, you've let this small boy play with your mind. You are our God. Why will you turn around to be, after you are a God that we worship, why will you turn around to be a servant to another God? Musa is just playing tricks with you. And Pharaoh said, that's why I like you. You're a very smart man. If I had not, spoken to you, sought your advice, Musa would have deceived me. So he told Haman, okay, now, when Musa comes, what is going to happen? He said, when he comes, tell him, yes, you believe there is a God, but that God is a small God. You are the big one. So when Musa came, فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَى فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. He said, yes, I believe, yes, the God. Yes, yesterday I told you there's a God. Yes, I believe in that God. Yes, but he's the small one. I'm the big. In the history of the world, nobody has said he's a God before Pharaoh. And if you come today and say you are a God, we say, no, you are only following the footsteps of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, when Musa prayed that, oh Allah, destroy Pharaoh, the Almighty didn't destroy Pharaoh until after 40 years. After 40 years. So if you are here and then you are doing dua and the Almighty doesn't respond to you, don't be annoyed. Musa waited for the Almighty Allah for 40 years before the Almighty Allah, gave him the response to the dua. And some of the Mufassirin are saying the reason why the Almighty Allah didn't accept the dua of Fir'aun to destroy him was that Fir'aun's mother was alive. And she was the reason that the dua didn't manifest. The day she died, then the dua manifested. So if you have a mother, even if she's not a Muslim, even if she's not a Muslim, I have a friend, and that's for this one I can say it publicly. He's the Imam of the Islamic Center of Maryland, Imam Chad L. He's a white man. He accepted Islam in 1997, and then he went to Egypt to study in Al-Azhar. He speaks Arabic like an Egyptian. He said when he accepted Islam, his mother was at loggerheads with him. But then later she realized that of all her kids, nobody respects her and adore her like him. Now, she's staying with him in his house. The last time we spoke, I don't know if she's yet accepted Islam or not, but I've known him for the past 4 or 5 years. He tells me, my mother, she stays with me, but previously it's not easy. So the fact that your mother or your father might not be a Muslim, that is not an open door for you to disrespect them. And the other thing is, you might disagree with your parents. It's natural. Disagreements are natural. But then, that respect of parents should always be there. When I went to Indianapolis for a convention, I had a youth session and I spoke about the identity of a Muslim for the young people. And part of the identity is respect for the elderly and respect for parents. And after the session, a couple of youth, about 4 or 5 of them came to me and they said, I'm having a hard time with my father. I'm having a hard time with my mother. I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know. It's as if they hate me and stuff like that. After they spoke, I told them, listen, when you were babies, they didn't kill you. When you were vulnerable, they didn't destroy you. Now you're older people. You think they will destroy you? You might disagree with them. But then there's one thing. وَصَاحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Travel with them in this dunya. As-suhba, companionship. Be with them as companions in this dunya on goodness. Your father might use curse words on you. I use swear words on you. But then, that title of fatherhood is never negated. It's still there. And that's what I always advise people who come to me that they're having issues with their parents. That title of fatherhood and motherhood is still there. It never changes. No matter the situation your parents turn into, that title of fatherhood and motherhood still remains. And the Shaykh in the last verse, he says, في جيدها
في جيدها حبل من مسد.
And this wife of Abu Lahab, whose name was Jamil, that's her name, she, fi jidiha, jid here means neck. In her neck, there's going to be a rope tied, dragging her in Jahannam. In a nutshell, this surah that we all know, we've all memorized, teaches us some lessons. Like number 1, sometimes the people who are against your vision are the people who are closest to you. That's 1. Number 2, the fact that you have money and kids doesn't mean that on the day of Qiyamah you're going to be free if you do not use that properly. Number 3, the fact that you are associated with someone who is good doesn't mean that on the day of Qiyamah that person's goodness is going to what? Is going to envelop you. And then the last one for me, the greatest takeaway for me is that this surah really pinpoints to the fact that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is truly a messenger from the Almighty Allah. Because he makes mention of Abu Lahab and Jamil of going to hellfire. If they had come out just one day, even hypocritically, to say, we believe in Muhammad, they will have destroyed the whole messengerhood. Finally, after this surah was revealed, Jamil looked for a rock. She had heard the verse, the surah. She understood what the message is. She looked for a big stone. She was looking to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to break his head, because she said he had insulted her. She came looking for him, and then she found Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu sitting, and then she asked him, where is Muhammad? And he was confused because Muhammad was sitting next to him. And then he looked at the Prophet, and then he looked at her face, and she said, hey, I said, where is Muhammad? And he would look at her face, and then he looked at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She said, where is Mudhammam? Because Muhammad is the praiseworthy. Mudhammam is the blameworthy. Min al-dham. He said, where is Mudhammam? And she told him, okay, fine. He says, you are not talking. When you see him, tell him that I've heard that Hajani, he had insulted me. If I get him, I'm going to break his head. And then she left. And Abu Bakr asked the Prophet, hey, Ya Rasulullah, what's happening here? And then he told him, she has been blinded from seeing me. She has been blinded. She can't see me. And the Prophet ﷺ used to say that these Quraysh used to call him Mudhammam, but he's not Mudhammam. He's Muhammad. So they are insulting Mudhammam. They are not insulting Muhammad. They can't insult Muhammad. They can only insult Mudhammam. And I'm not Mudhammam.
Yeah.
So anytime they insult Mudhammam, he doesn't respond. He doesn't reply. He's not furious. He's not annoyed. And the Sahaba will complain, and you tell the Sahaba, no, they are not insulting Muhammad. They are insulting Mudhammam. And I'm not Mudhammam. I'm Muhammad. So the kuffar never mention the name Muhammad to insult him. They always say Mudhammam. Because thinking that when they say Mudhammam, they are downgrading him. But he's not Mudhammam. He is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So these are my takeaways from this surah. And inshallah tomorrow we'll look at Surah Al-Nasr. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم.
MashaAllah.
We'll take some questions and we'll call it a day. Just stop it because